before. And when he sings the line, "My life is like a movie, except that it's not," the way he delivered that seems really familiar, and I can't think who it is. And it will suddenly hit me in 3 weeks' time, and it'll be too late, obviously. Um, Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles, you bugger! My name's John. His name is Andy. Here I go, out to sea again. The sunshine fills my hair, and dreams hang in the air. Gulls in the sky and in my blue eye. You know it feels unfair. There's magic everywhere. More on that later. But first, Andy, what various delights that are not Turkish do you have for us today?
Yeah, they're definitely not Turkish. They're Bostonian, actually. We are going to be revisiting a band. This will be the second time they've featured on this channel. That band is Vundabar. Do you remember giving Vundabar a listen in the past?
I do. I remember, for some reason, sometimes things stick in your head. And one of the things is thumbnails. And I remember it's like a cartoon of a guy with a question mark over his head.
Yeah.
And I remember the song being kind of sort of sing-songy, playgroundy type thing. That's what I remember.
Okay.
Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have hung around the playgrounds you were hanging around with. But yeah, it was a track called Alien Blue.
I bet you did. Yeah.
But today we're going to be checking out a track by them called Life is a Movie. So please go off, give it a listen, and let me know what you've made of it.
Okay, interesting start. That sort of echoey voice, and then it kicks in a bit of bass, and then this synthy. It's almost like a Europop synth from the 80s, and then in comes like the beat and etc. And it's sounding quite that sort of noughties indie dance kind of sound. And your man starts singing, and he's got a bit of that sort of attitude to his voice. There's a bit sort of like claiming stuff, slightly unhinged. It is definitely a descendant of David Byrne. Yeah, that line he said, "My life is like a movie." I noticed it because of the title, except that, but it's not, or something. And that kind of sounded familiar, not quite Byrne, but something else. Yeah, interesting start.
It's no story, just an endless rolling ocean, encircling from every direction, with the man sent from inspection. Nobody seems to know what's going on. We all just find our way to play it off. Here comes the punchline, here comes the grace. Here comes the part where we go off face. Here comes the lesson, here comes the light. Here comes the beacon in the night. What were you doing in my song last night?
That's interesting. It did it sort of 4 lines, but that started off, "What were you doing in my dream last night?" I think it was, and that so the guitars coming. It did sound like the Killers, and I could almost predict what was going to happen there with a sort of break and then back in again. Although that is quite a common sort of technique, but yeah, it did. It sounded like early Killers. Interesting. Let's whiz back just a little bit because there was some interesting guitar coming in there.
From the station that is lost on a signal long gone. Burn bright like this.
That's nice.
And the face turns right like it's supposed to. An ash, an urn, match.
Ooh, 80s guitar there.
And the saw bled out into the bedroom. Here comes the passion, here comes the fight. Here comes the jawline in the spotlight. Here comes the tension, here comes the hope. All on a Mayday parade float. What were you doing in my song last night? When you turned the light into a half fried. What were you doing? Heartbreaking halftime. It was never yours, it was never mine. Did we lose the song? Where is the signal that it's all long gone?
I think he was saying, "Hello, is there anybody out there?" Perhaps that's what he said at the start as well. I seem to bookend it. Excuse me. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, was this sort of a bit of a combination of sort of indie dance sounds? I like the various guitar sounds in there, particularly sort of like 2/3 of the way through. Some really nice sounds, and then this weird. It sounded like a broken washing machine, sort of muffled over the top. I don't know what the hell they were thinking of there. Um, yeah, his voice sounded really familiar in places. And there was that definite sort of Killers influence. I wonder when this came out. Sometimes I say that and then see at the top there's the year. No chance this time though. So I've got no choice. I have to go back to Andy and chop it up.
All right, so you're back from the cinema. What did you make of this track by Vundabar?
Overpriced hot dogs. Yes. So it starts with this sort of echoing voice saying hello, and I couldn't make out the rest of it. And then there's this kind of 80s sort of indie synthy poppy type sound. And then the beat drops in with the guitar, and we're definitely sort of morphed into very firmly into Naughty's sort of indie dance territory. Your man starts singing, and his voice has a certain sort of attitude to it, and tone, slightly declarative and touch unhinged in the nicest way. You can imagine it being delivered through a megaphone, and it's definitely like a distant sort of descendant of David Byrne. I'm sorry, but that's what I'm going to say. It's not David Byrne, but it's still got that sort of that slightly unhinged sort of bit to it. You know, we've discussed before. And when he sings the line, "My life is like a movie, except that it's not," the way he delivered that seems really familiar, and I can't think who it is. And it will suddenly hit me in 3 weeks' time, and it'll be too late, obviously. But there is something that is very familiar about that delivery and that style. But yeah, it's I say it's not unpleasing. There's a sort of knowingness as well, almost a bit of a smart artiness to it. And I listen to plenty of bands who sing it sounds like that. So yeah, it's familiar territory to me. Anyway, so it continues for a couple of lines, and then we get this chomp of the hi-hat, which then the music drops down. And I will sidebar for a second here and just say, coincidentally, a couple of days ago, I saw like a short on YouTube. It was Rick Beato and some other guy chatting away, a drummer that I probably should know and don't, from a 70s band probably. But they were talking about the sort of dearth of like hi-hat action in modern music, and bands don't use the chomp of the hi-hat as much.
Right.
And he did a few sort of incidents, and it was just really cool to listen to. And they're right, you don't hear it so much now, so it was really pleasing to hear that. It's a very small part of the whole song, but I liked hearing it. There you go. That's me. And then we get these words, here come the punchline. And after that, we get the first of a few of these, or of course, of 80s post-punk slash alternative slash indie guitar cameos. So this one comes in and it's not quite jangly. It's not quite distorted. It's sort of in the middle, but it's really pleasant and I really like it. And then in comes this big guitar line and joins in the action. And we're into what I believe is the chorus, which starts with the lines, "What were you doing in my dream last night?" And he sings about 4 lines of this. And I'm realizing as he's doing it that it reminds me very strongly of The Killers, their first album. So much so, I mean, the sound of it, the overall feel, and the construction, the way the lines are going, that I'm more the way, I can almost predict what's going to happen next, and the way it sort of drops down and then reconnects up again as the line he sings on a signal long gone and then back in again. Very pleasing. I could, so, but yeah. Immediately after this, we get the second guitar cameo. They're like sort of, guest stars in Columbo, Patrick McGowan or Ricardo Montalban, turning up in a safari suit. But yeah, we got really nice guitar acrobatics in the left channel. There's sort of like embellishing sort of licks that are really sort of nice. And it's not quite sort of echoing the Bunny Man, but it's, somewhere around that sort of thing. Will Sergeant, very nice. We get another drop down. And the lyrics at this point, as he's singing them, are kind of socially distanced from each other. They're at least, an arm's length away, the words. And we get this lovely strumming guitar in the right channel. And then this more attractive sister doing the same action in the middle channel with a bit more body to it, which is why it's more attractive. And the strum pattern changes to this classic sort of stomper, and then back into the sort of strumming again. Really, really nice. But at this point, we do get this very strange sort of sonic equivalent of a dirty blanket thrown over the whole thing. There's this weird filter thing that I don't know what the hell it was, but it kind of reminded me of a sound effect of a broken washing machine just filling up the room with soapy water. It just was odd. But anyway. The chorus comes back in again, more Killers vibes. And then on the other side of it, we get this sort of book ending to the start and finish. And I can actually hear it clearer there. So he says, "Hello, is there anyone out there?" In that echoey voice as it finishes, which kind of just reminds me of Pink Floyd The Wall for some reason, but there you go. So yeah, I thought this was a decent song. The indie dance vibe thing doesn't really take over me, rarely. So I thought it was all right. Definitely, nothing to dislike about it. But I really liked the various guitar cameo rolls that were like little 80s flavorings that weren't quite the Edge or weren't quite Will Sergeant or weren't quite this or that, but just had flavorings of them which made it even more enjoyable. So yeah.
Right on. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, if maybe not to the extent that I did, but you still enjoyed it. You brought up you brought up plenty of things I totally agree with and also liked about the song. But you brought up this like through the bullhorn type delivery earlier in the song, which I think is interesting because there is sort of this this cliche or stereotype for the depicting of a director from sort of the golden era of film, where you see like someone with a beret and a bullhorn barking out all of these, directives and, get over here and I need you stage left and all. And it just has like that delivery kind of reminds me of a director, or everything I've been taught or has been reinforced through film and stuff that what directors are. And given that the title of this movie, or this movie, look at me, the title of the song, it's just an interesting sort of tact to take, that I think lines up with the theme, of the title and the lyrics. So interesting stuff there. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting. You're right. That sort of idea, I think it probably came from early guys like D.W. Griffin, who were complete sort of almost circus ringmasters. And
Yes.
then you had like the German directors with their jodhpurs and their little whip and the sort of megaphone and all that sort of
Yes.
stuff. All the cliched versions of them.
Exactly.
And then you get into the sort of like, I don't know, 60s and 70s, and the director would be just sitting there and he'd have someone that he'd whisper to, and they would be the one then shouting the director's thoughts as he just sits there really, like Federico Fellini or something like that,
Yep.
and he'd have another guy to shout, quiet on the set, please, and he just sits there and, someone lights a cigarette for him and he doesn't do fuck all.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just a cool thought, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Vundabar, American indie rock band from Boston, Massachusetts. The band consists of Brandon Hagen on vocals and guitar, Drew McDonald on drums and synthesizer, and Zach Abramo on bass. Their musical style is described as indie rock with elements of post-punk, jangle pop, and surf pop. All music describes their style as jangly, fuzzed out math and surf tinged indie rock shot through with plenty of post-punk spirit. So, I mean, obviously all that checks out.
They miss Motown there, they got the whole lot.
Exactly. As influences, the band named Dick Dale. Singer Brandon Hagen also named the OCs, who have appeared on this channel thanks to a viewer request. Bassist Zach Abramo named electronic music such as Burial, and drummer Drew McDonald named Tame Impala, a band that hasn't yet featured on this channel but will in the future. The band has released 5 studio albums, with a 6th due out in just a matter of weeks, I think, at this point. We previously featured Alien Blues on this channel, as mentioned before, and that was from their second album, 2015's Gawk, which you definitely remember the thumbnail for the album on that one. On their first 3 albums, pardon me, Vundabar played mainly like the music as drums, guitar, and bass, stuck to the roots of it all. But then on their subsequent albums, Either Light and Devil for the Fire, they also used synthesizers, electronic drum sounds, and other instruments like piano and omnichord. Vundabar was originally Hagen and McDonald with fluctuating bassists. But then when McDonald was attending college, he met Zach Abramo, and McDonald introduced him to Hagen, and they soon incorporated Abramo fully as their bassist. In June of 2016, a new member of the band was present in an interview. The former bassist, Zach Abramo, had left the band to work on his own music, being the lead singer and guitarist for a band called Cragmask. Vundabar's new bass player was Grayson Kirtland. He continued to appear in live shows and interviews until late 2018, when the band tweeted about their next show, in which Abramo would be rejoining the band with them again, and has since been a mainstay in the band once more. Vundabar recently signed to esteemed label Loma Vista Records for their 6th full-length album, joining the ranks of artists such as Soccer Mommy, Denzel Curry, Sleater Kinney, Manchester Orchestra, Killer Mike, and Iggy Pop. And that is quite a hodgepodge of different genres and artists. So it's very interesting that they're wrapped up in this. It's just interesting to see labels out there expanding their horizons a bit more, moving on from the idea of just labels representing genres. So that's kind of cool and interesting to see. As I mentioned earlier, the band is set to release their 6th album in the very near future, March 7th to be exact, and the album will be titled Surgery and Pleasure. And this track we listened to today is the 2nd single from that upcoming album. In an interview for Northern Transmissions, Singer-guitarist Brandon Hagen explained, "Surgery and Pleasure is a more mature synthesis of all the stuff we've explored thus far, confirming that the album's a fusion of old-school Vundabar energy with newfound muscularity and slickness. In a way, it feels like a return, but it's also a grown-up Vundabar." Speaking on the writing process in the same interview, Hagen noted that he wrote many of the songs so that it could just as easily be about someone dying, the end of a relationship, or some unidentified something irrevocably breaking. So all of it was interchangeable, leading to the same conclusion. "I was dealing with how to accept that change is inevitable," Hagen explains. "These things can't be fought. It's just about acceptance and empathy." They announced that they would be joining the label, the aforementioned label, last year with the release of their single and video "I Got Cracked," followed by a second single and video, "Life is a Movie," both of which appear on this upcoming Surgery and Pleasure. In her brief review of the track for Stereo Gum, Danielle Trelowski wrote, "Vundabar explore post-punk textures with vocalist Brandon Hagen delivering abstract meditations in the form of deadpan shouts. No director yells cut. My life is like a movie, except that it's not. There is no story, just an endless roiling ocean." Meanwhile, over at Our Culture magazine, writer Konstantinos Papis published this quote from Hagen discussing the album and the whirlwind turmoil leading up to its recording. "In a 6-week window that I could only describe as a careening crash landing, a long-term relationship of mine imploded. My dad died, and I broke my arm in a hotel while on tour in Europe." Bandleader Brandon Hagen explained, "1 week after that, I was at his funeral, and the one after that, I was recording the song in Los Angeles. I reeled at the connectedness of it all. So much of these intangible fractures now grounded in the very physical break within my body. This physical break then dictating the floatier bits as I made music determined by the limitations of that injury." Yeah, that's a lot of shit hitting the fan at once. And they say, the saying is, shit happens in threes. So I would say the ending of a long-term relationship, the loss of your father, and the breaking of your arm would be an example of that saying. So here we are, the lyrics. "Hello, is anybody out there? Hello, is anybody out there? The sea ceases to be blue when the light starts pouring through. Only see the color when the light cuts. The wave machine doesn't power off. No director yells cut. My life is like a movie, except that it's not. There is no story, just an endless roiling ocean, encircling from every direction with a man sent from inspection. Nobody seems to know what's going on. We all just find our way to play it off. Here comes the punchline. Here comes the grace. Here comes the part where we go off our face. Here comes the lesson. Here comes the light. Here comes that beacon in the night. What were you doing in my song last night when you turned a lie into a half rhyme? What were you doing? Heartbreak in halftime? It was never yours. It was never mine. We sing the song from a station that is lost on a signal long gone. Is anybody out there? Hello? Is anybody out there? And the days burn bright like they're supposed to. And that phrase turns right like it's supposed to. And the ash and the urn match like a gray suit. And the song bled out into the bedroom. Here comes the passion. Here comes the fight. Here comes the jawline and spotlight. Here comes the tension. Here comes the hope. All on a May Day parade float. What were you doing in my song last night when you turned a lie into a half rhyme? What were you doing? Heartbreak in halftime? It was never yours. It was never mine. Did we lose the song or its signal that it's on? Long gone. Hello, is anybody out there? Hello, is anybody out there? So, in an interview with Inherent Bummer, My Life in a Nutshell, Hagen was asked about the meaning of the song, to which he replied, I think Life is a Movie came out of this idea of how we all self-mythologize our lives, use storytelling as a way to consolidate and partition things off, make them less abstract, but then that in itself is an abstraction. So yeah, interesting stuff. And life can be like a movie. And I think, as you've mentioned before, it can be an array of different genres in any given moment or any given day. So interesting material that I think is actually quite relatable. And I'm a big fan of the song. So thank you so much for giving this a listen, John. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Excellente. Guys out there in the listening, one might say Wundabar. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you made of this track by Vundabar, Life is a Movie. If it reminded you of anything, sort of like John had mentioned when he was giving it his first listen, he was pulling from other genres, bands, more current ones as well. Let us know what you made of it. Anything you like, just drop it down in the comment field below. We love interacting with you guys and watching you all interact with each other. Also, if you're new, please think about liking, sharing, and or subscribing. Any combination or even one of those things will go a long way in helping us drum up numbers here at the channel, and we really do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.